Hello, I wanted to talk to you today about the benefits and the disadvantages of having a corporate job versus working for yourself. This is a choice that I had to make personally in my career, and although I don't regret my choice at all to leave the corporate world and become a sole proprietor and an entrepreneur, there are pros and cons to both lifestyles. And so before you make that decision to change career paths, or if you're just leaving education for the first time and are looking to decide for the first time whether you belong in a corporate environment or if you are just happier and better served on your own and working for yourself, these are some things to consider that you might not have thought of. The first, I'm just going to refer to my notes here that I wrote while I was on vacation. On the beach. So the first thing that came to mind for me is that one of the greatest benefits of having a corporate job is the access to mentorship and being surrounded by senior people that have been in your role for their whole career and can give you a really clear image of what your life can become in that role. So this could go both ways. I mean, use the senior most professionals in an office as an example of maybe what you do want to become or don't want to become. Because if you see them working late, or if they don't spend enough time with their family, or they're always complaining about lifestyle situations, that work becomes too involved, or for whatever reason, you could use those as either red flags or hints that you're in the right place, or maybe this isn't right for you. But don't discredit the value of guidance and support and mentorship that having seniority level skilled persons above you can provide to your experience. And for me, just working as a designer right out of college, surrounded by senior designers and women and men who had been in the industry for decades before me, I felt safe and I felt cushioned, and almost as if I didn't know the answer, I could just put my hand up and someone would be there to help. And it was definitely a fitting springboard for me into my career to start off in a corporate office. And I do personally recommend that highly for anyone who has the opportunity. Yeah, in terms of security financially, I mean, I think this goes without saying that collecting a paycheck is more reliable than going out and sourcing your own clients and waiting for the next project request to come in. There's going to be seasons of dry spells in your freelance career where if the economy experiences a downturn, or depending on what niche you serve, if your clients just aren't buying what you're selling, then there's no CEO up there or president that's going to write you a paycheck to ensure that you can pay your rent. I'll actually go into another blog post entirely about how to budget your finances as an entrepreneur, as a self-employed individual. But that's a whole other topic that we could get into. Is what I'm saying is there's a lot more to it about the financial security of a corporate job versus freelancing. But just something to think about if that does give you some stress or anxiety about having to find your own work. Maybe corporate, for everything you might have to give up freedom-wise is worth that security and that safety blanket of, why are you calling it a safety blanket? A safety net of you don't have to worry about where the work comes from. That's somebody else's job. Your company will likely have its own sales team, and that's what they do best. They go out, they find the work, they sign the clients, and present it to you on a silver platter as part of the team. So that definitely alleviates some stress. If you feel as though you have conflict avoidance issues or interpersonal issues, or you're the type of person that you might get walked on a little easily and you have a hard time saying no and asserting boundaries, I want you to work on those things. But at the same time, if you know that that's an issue of yours, that's a weakness of yours, then being part of a team can help with that. Because when you're on your own, no one's going to come up and save you and have your back and help you have those difficult conversations or have those difficult conversations for you. It's just you and the client. So guess what? If the client decides they don't want to pay, you're dealing with that. You're hiring the lawyer, you're taking them to court, you're getting feisty, and it's going to cause a little bit of stress. Not to say that will for sure happen, but it's happened to me. Whereas if you're working for a company, someone else is dealing with that issue. And the client is someone else's problem. It's essentially what I'm getting down to, is like, you will likely have to talk to the client from time to time or present to a client from time to time, but they're not breathing down your neck. You're not the project manager. You likely always have a buffer of somebody in the office between you and the client. Someone that relays information back and forth and that you can speak freely to and speak your mind to. Let's see what else I've got here. So some cons about working in corporate is that you might be micromanaged, or at the very least, you are taking marching orders from someone higher up. So if you don't like working for someone else, or if you don't work well for others, that's something else to look into, is like, why do you think that is part of your personality? And is that something that you want to change about yourself? But without getting too deep into it, if you know that that's going to be an issue for you, is to be told to change things about your work or to do things differently than how you want to do them, then it's going to be challenging working for a creative director and maybe implementing their vision over yours. You're also going to feel restricted by corporate policy if you're working for a company for which you are an employee. For instance, dress code is a very common one. I mean, working for yourself, if you don't show up to an office with staff of your own, if you're just working from home like I am, of course I can wear whatever I want. I can even decide for me what is professional to show up as to my clients. Someone else isn't going to decide that for me. But in a corporate office, you might feel pressured to dress or even behave or speak a different way than how you would normally. And I know that our generation is kind of spearheading this culture of individuality, and the corporate world is getting better. I think it's getting better every generation, with kind of opening their minds to the uniqueness of the individual and embracing that as part of their corporate culture instead of the other way around, where the corporate culture defines the individual. But you're still going to find some of that in some of the corners of the corporate world. So be prepared that, tattoos, for instance, tattoos, piercings, dyed hair. There was a time when that was not considered professional. I think that's kind of out the window now. But there even was a time when my husband and I first started dating, when he was considering getting like a full sleeve tattoo, but being an engineer, didn't know what that meant for his career. If he did, that was only 6 years ago that was still a question. So corporate policy, something to take to your interview actually, is tell me more about your corporate policies so that I can decide whether I fit in or not. Yeah. Other corporate policies might be limits they put on vacation time, or if they offer mental health leave. If they offer overtime pay, if they don't do overtime pay. I know that I worked for a graphic design marketing agency once that expected me to stay late and even work some weekends, and yet I wasn't compensated overtime. What their daily start, log in, log out times are. Like, what time do you need me in the office? What time do you expect me to leave? Definitely, you'd be surprised at how much this can range across companies. You'd think that there would be like a standard and something to expect, but not necessarily. Take Shopify, for instance. They provide so many perks of the job to their employees that are so non-traditional, such as an allowance every month toward a gym membership or your physical health, and childcare subsidies, and all kinds of things like a fully stocked fridge and snacks at work in their office that is free to employees. But they do expect you to live in the office. And this is secondhand, maybe even third-hand information from a friend of mine who was employed for a short time at Shopify, where the culture just did not jive with this individual, and they eventually quit after their first 3-month probation because they were given all these perks in exchange for going home and having a personal life. So something to consider. Yeah, and then of course, like a timely aspect is what are their COVID policies. So if that's something that's important to you, it's definitely appropriate to ask that question in the interview phase, or to do some recon and ask people who work for the company, how do you feel about the policies? Do you feel safe working for this company? So on and so forth. So let's flip things around. So when you are self-employed, you make the rules. Of course, it's your company, it's your business, you work for you, you are your own boss, you make all the rules. But you must feel confident that you know how to start a company and what you want that company to look like for clients and for other people you might want to bring in and work with. You'll have to make some big decisions around naming your corporate policies. To have freedom, you have to have responsibility. So that's the trade-off for working for yourself is, you know, you got to do the hard jobs as well as the fun jobs. You want to be a designer, you want to be a creative, but you don't want any restrictions, and you want all the freedom to make all the design decisions that you want to make, and you don't want to take marching orders for somebody, but you also have to wear the business hat of the business owner. And that's a completely other set of skills that you must develop that might not be taught to you in design school. However, the way I look at it is, although there's so much more self-taught aspects to being a business owner, and you're literally learning something new every day, how to deal with conflict in different situations. You'll be surprised sometimes by how your clients might react to things, good and bad, but everything you do is an investment in yourself. So as long as the decisions you're making are decisions you can live with and you can really stand behind, then you're building up your future security, and that's a good feeling. It's a really good feeling to know that every dollar I'm spending in this business is an investment directly back into myself, and every minute I spend doing this work for this client is securing my future with that client, and they're going to come back and they're going to become a loyal source of income for me. It's something that you don't get the same feeling of self-service by working for someone else and lining their pockets and knowing how much they're billing out to their clients and how much you're taking home, compared to you setting your own rates and deciding I'm worth this much and this is what I feel comfortable charging, and I know that I can get clients to pay me this, and then taking that home with you at the end of the day. That was literally my next point, so I'm right on track. Growing your empire is a feeling of accomplishment you get when you are building your own design business that isn't the same as the feeling of climbing the corporate ladder. When you get promoted or get a raise, yes, you earned that, but someone else is giving it to you. It's someone else's discretion and decision what you deserve. And I'm not knocking this lifestyle at all. My husband is in this rat race right now. I don't like that term, but that's what they say. Where, you're kind of hitting benchmarks along the way, and you're constantly working to that next level and just going up, higher and higher. But when you are self-employed and you're your own boss, guess what? You're not working to the next level. You're building a legacy. You're building your own empire, and you can give yourself raises whenever you want, whenever you feel that the time is appropriate, and you can give yourself time off and extended vacation pay and whatever you want to do. The world is your oyster. So yeah, you have the most freedom in the world when it comes to your finances, your income, your time away from work, and how to manage your clients and your workload when you are working for yourself. I kind of segued a little bit there, but Another thing is, as your company grows, you can delegate to contractors or to other staff members, and you can hire and build that team, and then you're making just as much money or more as your team grows, and you can serve more people, and yet you're working less. Actually, this was a good point for a reason, is compared to the corporate life, you tend to work more and take on more stress and more responsibility the higher you climb in the ranks. And it's kind of the justification for earning the big bucks, is that they're earning the big bucks because they're putting the time in and they're taking on the mental load and they're dealing with the big issues. But if that doesn't sound like fun to you, I mean, not to say that those things aren't going to exist in your personal job, in your personal business, they are. But the idea is that the bigger your company grows, the more you can step away. You find people to fill sub-roles that take your responsibilities away from you, and then you can just focus on what you love to do most. And that's a freedom that you just don't get in the corporate world. I have a couple more points. So something that people don't normally think about, and I certainly didn't think about this, although it hasn't affected my decision today, but it was a piece of wisdom I wanted to share with you, is that when you're working for yourself, you have the utmost freedom with your retirement savings. So you can use your money however you want when you're paying yourself directly. You can buy investment properties. You can invest in stocks. You can partner with another startup business. You can invest in other business owners. Your retirement savings plan doesn't need to be tied up with your employer. So a lot of corporate companies will put your retirement savings away for you. And a lot of people see that as handy and like out of sight, out of mind. Sure, do it for me so that it's sitting there as a nest egg when I retire. However, there's a lot of schools of thought on how retirement savings don't accrue enough interest to balance the rate of inflation. So you're actually losing money the more you save and set away for the decades to come. Your money is better served actively invested. So that's a whole other topic that we can get into, but you have the most freedom with your money when you're self-employed is the bottom line. And the area that most people don't think about is how that can affect your retirement. Finally, you can contribute to your community with more time and more energy and build on your reputation more as a business owner. In our community, I own 2 businesses. I own my graphic design studio and I own a martial arts gym. And I show up to my community as both. And I pick and choose kind of like what endeavors, initiatives, and events I want to represent which business at. And it's mostly strategic, but at the same time, whenever an opportunity presents itself, we just kind of jump in, my husband and I, with both feet and say, yeah, we want to get involved because we love our community and we want to give back. And that is a beautiful, wonderful feeling when you are able. And I'm not saying like pressure yourself to do this in the early years, because in the early years of starting my business, I could not afford to give much back. I was really just living to pay my bills and pay my rent, and that's normal. So don't feel any guilt, but 11, 12 years in, I can do those things, and I can do them, and it feels so gratifying to do those things as a business owner and be known as an individual and not be known as a corporation. Yeah. So some things that I know some people don't think about on a regular basis, but when you are considering going into the working world for the first time and that freelance lifestyle is very appealing to you for the freedom and the money-making aspect, the corporate world, I recommend, is a better start. You really do get to network better, make connections with people you wouldn't have opportunities to meet as a freelancer. You'll be paid access to giant events, maybe not so much in COVID, but in the good old days before COVID, you know, you could just tag along with your corporate team to a large networking event and meet all kinds of people that become stepping stones for you in the future to opportunities. And you can still do those things as a business owner, but they're costly and you kind of need an in. So you need to get to know people first within your industry, within your network. So yeah, I would recommend that new designers who are just graduating college, just starting off their careers, seek mentorship, seek the guidance of senior professionals, and look for a place to intern in your third year of college or your last year of college, where you can solidify a job for yourself going into the job world. And then from there, start working on your freelance business. Freelance, that's another really important policy that you can ask during your interview or kind of scope out incognito is, do they allow freelancing? Some do not, of their employees. But ideally, you'll be freelancing as you're working, kind of moonlighting, like burning the midnight oil. But it's in doing that that you're securing a future for yourself a few years down the road where you can leave that corporate job and really start building your own empire and being your own boss, if that's what you want. I hope that was helpful. And reach out to me if you have any questions or if you ever just want to chat about these things. I'm an open book and I'm happy to share. Take care.